Major funding for this Read 180 workshop is provided by the National Science Foundation, America's investment in the future.
At Jif Peanut Butter, we know just how choosy you are when it comes to your family, including the shows you value most. Public television encourages kids' curiosity and love of learning, and Jif is proud to support Cyberchase on behalf of all choosy moms and dads.
Intel Corporation is a proud supporter of PBS. The Intel Innovation in Education Initiative provides teachers with the resources to inspire their students and encourage them to unlock their potential.
And by a ready-to-learn television cooperative agreement from the U.S. Department of Education through the Public Broadcasting Service.
And by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. This program was also made possible by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to Workshop 3, Long Journey to Justice. For more than 40 years, the non-white citizens of South Africa lived as second-class citizens in their own country. Under apartheid, a shocking and cruel political system, blacks and people of mixed race were stripped of their rights, humiliated, and abused. In this workshop, you'll come to understand what life was like under this biased system and how it was finally defeated. First, you'll experience apartheid through the eyes of a fictional character, a black teen who goes to work in South Africa's dangerous diamond mines, where he makes some shocking discoveries. Then, you'll read the inspiring words of Nelson Mandela, the former president of South Africa, and the man who made the struggle against apartheid an international cause. Our video story shows how apartheid began, the harsh way it was implemented, and the worldwide effort that brought it down. You'll see how the fight to crush this despicable system truly was a long journey to justice. Reading 1. Diamond Land. Diamond Land is a piece of short fiction by Rita Williams Garcia, a writer from New York City. Rita likes writing about teens. She knows there's nothing simple about their lives, no matter where they live. Rita first became interested in South Africa because of its diamonds. The country was once the world's largest producer of these precious gems. But when she learned about the deadly conditions for the workers in South Africa's diamond mines, Rita was inspired to write a story about it. Diamond Land takes place in rural South Africa in the early 1990s, when apartheid was still a devastating way of life. The main character is Aize, a teen whose family herds cattle. Aize goes off to work in the diamond mines so he can earn fast money to help his family and save up to marry Zinzi, his girlfriend. At the mine, Aize's new friend Nkosi teaches him that pink diamonds are the most valuable ones, but that their lives are worth almost nothing to their bosses at the mine. Will Aize save his family or die trying? Reading 2. Nelson Mandela, in his own words. Nelson Mandela was born in South Africa, one of 13 children, in a land of over 40 million people. But in the struggle against apartheid, he stands out among all the rest. At an early age, he took up boxing, but soon discovered a better way to fight. Mandela began by battling injustice in the courts as a lawyer, and later in the streets as an activist. To those in power, Mandela was a public enemy. And in 1964, he was sentenced to life in prison. But even behind bars, he continued to inspire and galvanize support in the fight against apartheid. Finally, by 1991, the apartheid laws were repealed, and Mandela was released from prison after serving 27 years. Then, in South Africa's first open election, Nelson Mandela was overwhelmingly elected president, and apartheid became a thing of the past. Now a national hero, his inauguration speech inspired millions, celebrating liberty, freedom, justice, and peace.
Your Royal Highnesses, distinguished guests, comrades and friends, today all us do, by our presence here and by our celebrations in other parts of our country and the world, confer glory and hope to newborn liberty. Out of the experience of an extraordinary human disaster that lasted too long, must be born a society of which all humanity will be proud. Our daily deeds as ordinary South Africans must produce an actual South African reality that will reinforce humanity's belief in justice, strengthen its confidence in the nobility of the human soul, and sustain all our hopes for a glorious life for all. All this we owe both to ourselves and to the peoples of the world who are so well represented here today. To my compatriots, I have no hesitation in saying that each one of us is as intimately attached to the soil of this beautiful country as are the famous jacaranda trees of Pretoria and the mimosa trees of the Bushveld. We dedicate this day to all the heroes and heroines in this country and the rest of the world who sacrificed in many ways and surrendered their lives so that we could be free. Their dreams have become reality. Freedom is their reward. We understand it still that there is no easy road to freedom. We know it well that none of us acting alone can achieve success. We must therefore act together as a united people for national reconciliation, for nation building, for the birth of a new world. Let there be justice for all. Let there be peace for all. Let there be work, bread, water, and salt for all. Let each know that for each, the body, the mind, and the soul have been freed to fulfill themselves. Never, never, and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another. The sun shall never set on so glorious a human achievement. Let freedom reign. God bless Africa. I thank you.
From the late 1940s until the early 1990s, South Africa was under the grip of a legal system called apartheid, a practice that separated blacks from whites, preventing over 75% of the population from living freely in their own homeland. This is the story of the rise and fall of one of the most cruel and unfair political systems ever created. Freedom for South Africa. The Republic of South Africa lies on the southern tip of the African continent, with the Atlantic Ocean to the west and the Indian Ocean to the east. The country is known for its diamonds, its gold, its rich farmland, and its terrible legacy of racial segregation. For centuries, South Africa was ruled by white English and Dutch colonists, even though the majority of the population were native black South Africans. Then, in the late 1800s, with the discovery of huge deposits of gold and diamonds, South Africa suddenly became one of the richest countries in the world. And the English and the Dutch fought each other for the new wealth. The struggle continued until the 1940s, when the Dutch descendants known as Afrikaners gained control of the government. The Afrikaners had a long history of racial bias, but it wasn't until they gained political power that they were able to make laws oppressing non-whites. Almost immediately, the Afrikaner National Party began to split the country and its people literally in two. Suddenly, the majority black and non-white population lost all rights as citizens in their own country. They were not allowed to run their own businesses. They could no longer live or work in white areas without a pass or permit. This system of racial segregation became known as apartheid, the Afrikaner word for separateness, or keeping things apart. Blacks were fenced in and forced to live in shabby homes, in rural townships far from the cities. Many walked for miles to work as laborers for businesses controlled by whites. Even public benches were reserved for whites, and parks were strictly off-limits. The injustice of apartheid led to a long and violent conflict between blacks and whites. By the late 1980s, hundreds of people were dying in black townships. One of the first leaders to stand up to the government was a young Nelson Mandela. He fought apartheid in the courts and on the streets, and he paid a heavy price. In 1964, he was arrested and sentenced to life in prison. But Mandela became a powerful symbol of the exploited black majority, rallying millions of supporters. The rest of the world responded with protests, economic sanctions, and boycotts against the South African government. The system of apartheid soon began to crumble. By the early 1990s, the remaining apartheid laws were finally repealed, and Nelson Mandela was released from prison after spending some 27 years behind bars. But the ultimate poetic justice came in 1994, when Mandela was elected president in a landslide victory, restoring democracy, equality, and freedom to his native South Africa.